In this episode of Building RYLOTH, we will be finally doing it. We will be completing the main tower of the Capitol. I knew that this was going to be the hardest part of the mock, so I'm so glad to finally have it done. So stay tuned to see how it all turns out. But that also means we're going to be able to start experimenting with some other parts of the mock. So let's get into this episode of Building RYLOTH.
To start this episode off, I wanted to create the transition between the main pathway and the interior flooring of the entranceway. Now for this transition, I'm going to be mixing plates and tiles together as it transitions into the SNOT technique, which stands for studs not on top if you are not familiar. Since the floor is using dark tan and the pathway is also using the same color, the transition turns out pretty seamless. But I did want to focus on making sure the transition between the medium nougat portion of the pathway also has a seamless transition. So I used the SNOT technique to make it look like there are some streaks of medium nougat mixing with the dark tan. But with that done, I want to get back to some more terrain work. And since I've kind of run out of things to say during the segment, I thought it'd be a good spot for a little Q&A. And you guys actually pretty surprised me with the amount of questions there were. So I thought we'd start with a pretty simple question. So both Prospect Bricks and Andre aka Tutorials both ask what my favorite Star Wars movie is, and I'll throw in my least favorite as well. So this is something that changes all the time for me, and it's always between episodes 3, 4, 5, and Rogue One. But as it stands right now, episode 4 is currently my favorite just because I love how the film just encapsulates the hero's journey from classical Greek mythology through Luke's story throughout the film. I just feel that the film just did such a good job of establishing the world of Star Wars. In just one film, you learn so much about this universe, and it doesn't feel, overwhelming, even though it's starting right in the middle of this grandiose saga. But in terms of my least favorite, it's definitely the Clone Wars movie. I'm sorry, I love the show, but just shoving 4 episodes together and just tossing it in theaters just doesn't work as a theatrical film for me. Now with the terrain done for this episode, it's time to return to working on the Capitol. If you remember, at the end of the previous episode, I finally received the parts to finish off the main tower, so I'm going to go ahead and build the remaining panels, and there's not much more to talk about this, which means there's now more time to answer one more question for this episode. So 66 Bricks asks what my favorite thing about running a YouTube channel is and what keeps me motivated. This is definitely a very important question because as with any creative outlet, everyone will experience lack of motivation or burnout at some point. It's inevitable. I am not motivated 24/7 to work on this channel. I don't think anyone ever is. So it's important to recognize when you lack motivation and just take a break. Chances are if you don't take a break and force yourself to keep working, you'll probably be less efficient than if you were to take that break in the first place. At the end of the day, I just love to make stuff. That's what I love about YouTube, and I just love being able to share what I can create with you guys. It is all of you guys that keep me motivated. As long as you keep watching, I'll keep making videos. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions, or more than I was expecting, honestly. So if you have a question for the next episode, you can leave it in the comments, but make sure you include the hashtag Q&A so I know to answer the question in the video. But with all of these panels built and them now being attached, the tower could be done. However, I have some ideas of how I could improve it. First of all, I've seen a few people asking if there was a way to fill in the gaps present in the frame around the entranceway. Originally, I didn't have a solution to this, but I decided to spend some time and experiment. Finally, I came up with the solution utilizing flex tubes. I built these submodels that has a clip that I can attach to the flex tube, and the final result has a lot less gaps compared to the previous version, and I'm very glad that I was able to find a solution to this problem. So I've been trying to figure out how do I do this angle portion at the top of the tower. Now I was able to find a design that I liked off camera, and what I just started with this little base right here, making use of various Technic bricks and lift arms just to get a sturdy base to build off of so that I can hold the roof. So I decided to go with these cheese grater slopes just so I can have a consistent angle throughout the entire roof. And you can see the top just lined up with a bunch of cheese grater slopes. I did run out of my light gray slopes, so I'm going to have to order some more. But this is the first support that I did build and just attaches right in the front. And then I built a second support that goes in on the back. Now here is the roof, but this just slides in and sits on the supports. Now there's nothing currently along the sides right here, and that's because I built up these custom modules that just was able to sit right on here at an angle, and I'm making use of these 2x3 wedges, which perfectly aligns with this angle right here. Now to get this angle, I'm making use of some modified plates, one with a clip and one with the bar, and then another one of these cheese grater slopes to make sure that's at that consistent angle. And then you just attach in on this stud right here.
Now another way I'm getting this angle, this area wasn't able to have the same technique I used in those other two. So I'm making use of this 1x1 round plate with a bar at the end, which is able to just stud into a hollow stud, which is right here. Now this is the technique I'm going to be going with to get the curve at the very top. So I tried to go ahead and film myself finishing off the top of the tower, but after I finished off the first side, I kind of gave up because I just kept breaking it. So I just finished up the rest off camera. But as you can see, I'm using a lot of substitute pieces. I do have those coming in soon, but finishing off the design for this side does mean that there is only one more thing I need to do in order to complete the design for this tower. That is completing the floor of the entranceway. Now it's a pretty simple design that we've discussed in a previous episode. The tricky part was making sure that the floor lined up with the interior, so you see me every now and then taking away the floor and checking to make sure that it lines up. Adding texture to the floor is still a priority, even in the far back where it might be difficult to see in the final product, so I went ahead and made sure that it was there just in case. The floor is able to slide in very easily with a little fidgeting here and there. And with that final piece, the tower is finally done. Or the design at the very least. I'm still waiting for some parts to come in the right color. I knew that this was the part of the mock that would take the longest to figure out, so I'm very relieved to finally have it done. So with the tower done, I want to get started on the rest of the capital walls. So to do that, I first need to lay down the base, utilizing whatever large plates I could scrap up in my collection. I even had to start eating into my dark bluish gray brick collection to use as filler brick. I mean, I'm probably not going to use it for anything else in this mock, so I might as well use it for filler brick as well. Now that the base has been built up, I can start experimenting with the design for the walls. We're starting by creating the angle for the wall, and I'm once again going with the cheese grater slopes since they're pretty easy to work with. So I have a few pillars to keep the wall in place, and what I have of the wall is able to slide right in. So when designing this portion of the wall, I need to figure out how I was going to merge the wall with the rest of the capital. So you can see I just used various slopes and wedge plates, which I feel like gives a pretty seamless transition, or at least the best transition that I could figure out. Still a very early prototype phase for this portion of the wall, but basically the plan is that the top portion of this will slope downwards, and then it will transition into this prototype that we designed in a previous episode. Again, this was really just a proof of concept. The final version will be a lot taller, but will probably look something along the lines of this, except for it's probably going to be a little bit shorter in the front right here, but taller to probably about right here. I am quite curious how this portion of the wall is going to turn out. So I have some great ideas with how I'm going to build up the rest of the wall, so I'm very excited to see how that all turns out. But that's going to be it for this episode of Building RYLOTH. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Remember to leave your questions in the comments for the next episode whenever I do another one of these Q&As. But anyways, have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.